everybody. I wanted to put down in a video what our rotations will look like. A lot of videos that are on YouTube or in other places are a little different than what we're trying to run, but I wanted to get this down so that everybody could understand some of the basics of why we run what we do. So when we start off, and this video is going to be mostly about a 6-2 offense, which is what that means is there's 6 hitters and 2 setters. This is not a normal offense for higher levels. A lot of times they'll run a 5-1, which is 5 hitters and 1 setter. But for our level, especially at the first, we're going to run a 6-2. It gets more setters involved, especially younger setters that need some court experience. So we're going to run 6-2. So there's some basics that we got to cover real quick. So I have these little stickers, or not stickers, little magnets that'll move around, and then there's some other things. So if you note down at the bottom, have red for restricted movement. I'll draw some lines where players can't go, or else it's illegal. Then there's court numbering, and then some possible movements for hitters and that type of thing. So we're going to start off with court numbering. So we talked about this in practice, but how this works for volleyball is if you're looking at this court, and I'm going to make the net just a little more prominent. So we got the middle of the net right here, and then this area back here is the back court, and then up here is front court, where only front row hitters can hit. So how the court numbering goes is it starts with the first player, or the first spot. So this is 1, and then it goes counterclockwise: 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now the reason for that is it's related to when you fill out your lineups for the game, for the match, you put the first person who's going to serve at the top of the list, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So the scorekeepers know this person will start. Now, something that will probably throw kids the first time in the tournament that we're going to play is when we have the ball. When we start off with the ball, when we start off with serve, this is how it will look: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the lineup. But when we start off with receive, so this team over here is receiving, we actually start back 1. So the number 1 player, the first person to serve, will actually start 1 rotation forward, and that will propagate backwards. So that way, the first person that will serve will start right here. They'll serve, or the other team will serve, will side out, and then this player will come back to serve. So that's something to keep in mind when we have our first game, if players are not used to that. Okay, so a couple terms. So we have setter. The S stands for setter. Outside hitter, OH. Middle blocker, middle hitter, some people refer to them. There's also, we're not going to use these at the moment, but there's right side that goes along more with a 5-1, and then there's the L for libero, who is the back row player that is free to come in and out whenever they need. So those are those terms. And then also for what we're going to show, these orange, those orange tags, those are for front row players. So we'll help, hopefully that'll help kind of clear things up as we do the the rotations. Okay, and then just to kind of make things easier for this, we won't include the libero and obviously the right side because it's a 6-2. Okay, so a couple things. Let's erase the numbers. So there's two terms that we've talked about in practice. We have home, and then we have job. And what that means is when, and we'll start with us serving. So we'll start, I always start with the setter first. And this is where videos don't always have the same thing that I want. But the coaches of the high school team, they start with their middle blocker following the setter, and then outside. And then one of the other things to note is you will always have someone on the exact opposite of you that plays the same position, unless we're running a 5-1, but it's similar. Anyway, so there's a setter that's back row and setter front row. And then obviously that means the next player is the middle blocker and then the outside hitter. So everybody is across from each other. Okay, so right now in the rotation, this is what's called, this is what I refer to as their home position. This is where they are in the rotation. Setter is here, middle blocker outside, setter, middle blocker outside. This is their home. They have to come back to this position every time the ball goes back to serve, whichever side. They have to be in the home position. The job is where on the court they're supposed to do their work. So in this specific rotation, the middle blocker is trying to get to the middle, the outside hitter is trying to get to the outside, and the setter is trying to get to this side. And in the back, it would be very much the same. So this is their job, is they're trying to get to where they play, where they do their work. So the outside hitter hits out, middle blocker, and then the setter sets from this side. And the back row works the same. Okay, move them back to where they were. Back to their home position. And the only reason that you have to do this is because of this restricted movement. And what that means is there's basically an invisible line right here between players, and they can't cross each other. So the setter can't be in front of the person in front of them, the middle blocker. They also can't be on the other side of the outside hitter. The outside hitter can't be on either side of these two players, and they can't be in front of the player in front of them. And middle blocker, same. And all that works out the same. So in order to do that, they have to stay in their home until after the ball is served. So right now they're in their home position. The setter is going to go back to set, or to serve, excuse me. And then there's a couple keys to this. The first one is that, well, actually I'll come back to that. So just real quickly, how this works is the server will serve the ball, it comes over to this side. As soon as that happens, everybody wants to get into their positions as fast as they can, so that when the ball is played out, we have the middle blocker able to block in the right spot, outside hitter can get set outside, and so on. Okay, so that's briefly what needs to happen. So now move them back to where they were. Get the server back there. Okay, now the server, so this is where the keys come in. The first one is when we're serving, the number one key is we need to get our blockers in place, because the last thing we want is these guys to have a big hitter. They hit the ball and our blockers are running around. Someone gets hit in the face with the ball. That's exactly not what we want. Okay, so how this works. And then there's kind of a key 1A, which is to get the middle blocker, who is kind of the general, to make sure that they are in the right spot. So we want to get them, the middle blocker, as close to their position as possible. The outside hitter can't cross them, so they need to, they can't cross the setter because the front row setter is over here and the setter can't come over here yet. So they need to get ready so that when the server serves the ball, the setter will actually run all the way over here. So now the middle blocker is in place, the outside hitter is in place, and the setter's in place. Now in the back row, these two are not in the right place. So we want to get them as close to their position as possible, because the second key is to cover any holes that are left as people shift over. So the first thing is the setter is outside the court. So they don't want the ball, someone serves over here and they get a quick hit back over to this spot. And there's no one here to cover because the setter hasn't run in because they were admiring their great, wonderful serve. So we need to have our outside and our middle stacked like that, so that if the ball does come back over, the outside hitter can cover the setter. Middle has this area over here just in case. And then up in the front, while the setter is coming over, middle needs to kind of keep an eye on this spot right here to make sure that nothing happens there. Okay, so as soon as the server serves the ball, they're going to run into their spot. The outside and the middle are going to switch, get into base position, which is something like this, and the server is going to run over here. Now, one of the confusion pieces that comes up sometimes, and it came up for some teams in practice, is when you serve this over, the back row setter is the setter. They're setting from the back row so that we have 3 hitters. The ball gets played out over here, and we'll just throw in for the fun of it, we'll put the middle blocker outside, and we'll say they have a right side hitter right now. So, and they're the mirror image of this side, but they have the hitters over here that are going to hit the ball. The ball gets hit back over to this side. Now we want to get our setter, that's back row setter, involved in setting the ball. So as soon as the ball comes over, the setter in the front row transitions back, middle transitions back, outside transitions out, setter comes up, this middle blocker passes it back to the setter, who then can set any of these 3 hitters. So that way we have the best chance at our offense hitting the ball against their defense on the other side. Now the setter's back row, they can't hit it. They can tip it over or they can set it over, as long as they're not jumping or reaching over the net. Okay, and then again, when the setter's up here, there's this big hole right here, so the middle blocker kind of needs to sneak up and watch just in case a block happens off this middle blocker or off the outside hitter and the ball comes back and they need to dig that up. Okay, so the setter sets the ball to the outside hitter, who then hits it over to the other side. Then everybody gets back to their job and everybody is happy. That way we can run our offense. The main keys on this, again, are get the blocker in place quickly, especially the middle, and then cover the holes. Okay. All right, that's for serve. Now for serve receive for this. So we'll put everybody back in their home as we had them before. So this is their rotation. The server serves it over here. This team over here puts the ball away, and now we have to receive from the outside hitter that's serving over there. Okay, so this one is where the serve receive is where a lot of people get really confused. Now, again, that restricted movement is in place, so we can't cross over each other. So how this has to work out is we need to move around so that we can make sure the keys to receive these. So these are a little different. Number one is we want to get our setter as close to where they're going to set the ball as possible, which is right up here. Then we want to get our passers so that we have 3 passers in the back so that they can pass to the setter up here. Right now that would leave a big hole right here. And then the other one is we want to get our hitters in a good place to hit the ball. So we're going to erase that line, move over to trying to pass the ball. So this can be run a couple different ways. I actually I like to run this in a way that makes it so that the players, the hitters, can be in a good position, and to make sure we get our 3rd passer in the right spot, and it's a little easier for the setter. Some teams will pull the passer in front of the setter back, and then the setter just has to run around. So if we were to, I'll use this green arrow, or green marker. So if I pull this one back, then they also will stack their players over here. The setter will need to run around to this spot so they can set, and then the middle blocker will come out here to hit, or they can go down the middle. And then other teams will have their front row setter up here, and then they'll run around to the back to hit from the back side, which is another possibility. And then the middle hits in the middle, and the outside hitter comes around and hits from the outside. That's fine. Some people do that. To me, that's a lot of movement in the middle of the court, especially with younger players that may not always pass it to right where they need to go. So how I do it is I take the middle blocker and we stack them up in the front, and then we pull the outside hitter back to be the passer. This also does leave some space where the front row setter can come back and pass to. Now what this does, so this setter has to be in front or behind, the middle blocker back here, and they have to be on this side of the outside hitter. So as long as this person, the setter, is in front or behind, the middle blocker, they can actually come over here as long as they're not, pull my red marker, as long as they're not crossing over this outside hitter. And then the outside hitter who was in the middle, they just can't be behind that outside hitter that's in the back row. So we'll draw that line right there. And then they can't be on this side of the middle. And then everybody else is where they're supposed to be. The outside hitter, or the middle, is behind setter from the front row. Outside hitter is obviously away from them. So we're good there. Okay, this then allows us to keep the setter up in the front, right where they need to be, and then set the ball. It lets the outside hitter come around to the front to hit. Middle blocker hits back here, and the setter in the front row hits out there. One other thing on this, if, for example, one of our passers is struggling, then we can, let's say we'll pull this middle blocker, who is likely going to be libero, but we'll pull that middle blocker back, pull the setter back here so that they can pass and then run out. They can pass and then come out here to hit. And as long as this middle is in front of this, or behind, excuse me, the front row setter and to the side of the outside hitter, then we're good there. So that's, those are other, there's other possibilities with passing. You can also hide this outside hitter if needed, the same type of way. So we move the outside hitter out here, hide this outside hitter because they have to be, oh, I take that back, I did that wrong. They have to be out of the way. I meant to hide this outside hitter. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. So hide that outside hitter. This outside hitter is passing, middle setter. We try not to get as much of our front row passing, because then they have to pass and then hit. But sometimes players struggle, and you got to work with that. Okay, so this outside hitter comes around, hits, middle hits, setter hits. Then the ball goes over, comes over to this side. Then they all have to get back to their regular jobs. So the setter has to come back here, the outside in the middle and the back switch over. The right, or the middle blocker comes up to the middle, outside hitter slides out, and the right side comes over to the side. That way they're now in their jobs so that they can play that out until the ball goes dead. And then if we don't get the point, it goes back over to them to serve again. Then we start over, keep the middle up, setter up here. And this is to stack up here. So that's the term that we'll use, is to stack up here, outside, outside, and we're good. Okay, that's the first rotation of the 6-2. There are 6 rotations of a 6-2, but 3 of them are the same as the other 3, just with different players in the front and in the back. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. Keep an eye on your opposite player, know where they are, and that will help. Okay, I will stop this one and I will create another one for the second rotation.